Hello everyone, welcome to Bar Motivation, the YouTube channel that aims to motivate the future entrepreneurs and billionaires by providing informative, inspiring and motivational videos. Today in this video we will be sharing the journey of Apple from 1970s to 2018. Founders and name. Apple Inc., earlier known as Apple Computers, the first trillion-dollar company, started its journey on April 1, 1976. It was a humble startup with 3 friends in one garage. The two Steves, Jobs and Wozniak, are the most visible founders, also known as the primary founders. The third co-founder, Ronald Wayne, also contributed towards the growth of the company, and there would have been no iPhone, iPad or iMac without his contribution. The company was named Apple because of the company to beat in the technology industry at that time was Atari. And the Apple computers came before Atari alphabetically and thus also in the phone book. Another reason was that Jobs had happy memories working on an Oregon apple farm one summer. The name sounded fun, spirited and not intimidating to Steve Jobs. Apple 1. The two primary founders Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak met through a mutual friend, Bill Fernandez. They had withdrawn from Reed College and UC Berkeley respectively by 1975. Having met in 1971, Steve Jobs and Wozniak had been friends for some time. Steve Jobs managed to interest Wozniak in assembling a computer machine and selling it. Jobs started looking for cash, but banks were reluctant to lend him money as the idea of computer for ordinary people seemed absurd. Joined by Ronald Wayne, they started building machines and formed Apple Computer on April 1, 1976, and then eventually 200 of the Apple I's were built. Apple II and Apple III. Wozniak had soon moved from Apple I, and many of the design features of the Apple I were due to the limited amount of money they had to construct the prototype, but with the income from the sales, Wozniak was able to start construction of a greatly improved machine, the Apple II. The main difference internally was a completely redesigned TV interface which held the display in memory. With both cash and a new case design in hand, thanks to the designer Jerry Minogue, the Apple II was released in 1977 and millions were sold well into the 1980s. While the Apple II was already established as a successful business-ready platform, Apple was still not content. So the Apple III was designed to take on the business environment. The Apple III was released on May 19, 1980. The Apple III was relatively conservative design for computers of the era. However, Steve Jobs did not want the computer to have a fan. However, the physical design of the case was not sufficient to cool the components inside it. By removing the fan from the design, Apple III was prone to overheating. Thousands of Apple III computers were recalled. A new model was introduced in 1983 to try and rectify the problems, but the damage was already done. Apple initial public offering. On December 12, 1980, Apple launched the initial public offering of its stock to the investing public, selling 4.6 million shares at $22 per share. When Apple went public, it generated more capital than any IPO since Ford Motor Company in 1956 and instantly created more millionaires, about 300, than any company in the history. Steve Jobs, the largest shareholder, made $217 million alone, and by the end of the day the stock had increased in value by almost 32% to close at $29, leaving the company with a market value of about $2 billion. The Lisa and the Macintosh. Lisa stood for Local Integrated System Architecture, and the fact it was Jobs' daughter's name was purely coincidental. It was a high-end business machine slated to sell at close to $10,000. Jeff Raskin, meanwhile, was heading up development of the Macintosh, which had smaller businesses and home users firmly in its sights, and each team wanted to be the first to ship an Apple computer with a graphical interface. Jobs leaves Apple and his comeback. The Macintosh's failure to defeat the PC strengthened the former CEO of Apple, John Sculley's position in the company. In June 1985, The board of directors sided with Scully and Jobs was stripped of all duties. Jobs, while taking the position of the chairman of the firm, had no influence over Apple's direction and subsequently resigned. Then, under the leadership of John Scully, Apple issued its first corporate stock dividend on May 11, 1987. A month later, on June 16, Apple stock split for the first time in a 2:1 split. On July 9, 1997, Gil Amelio was ousted as CEO of Apple by the board of directors. Jobs stepped in as the interim CEO to begin a critical restructuring of the company's product line. While discontinuing Apple's licensing of its operating system to third-party computer manufacturers, one of Jobs' first moves as new acting CEO was to develop the iMac, which bought Apple time to restructure. In May 2001, after much speculation, Apple announced the opening of a line of Apple retail stores to be located throughout the major US computer buying markets. The period between 2001 and 2007. Much happened between 2001 and 2007 as Apple introduced iPods and iTunes stores. In October 2001, Apple introduced its first iPod portable digital audio player, and the iPod gave an enormous lift to Apple's financial results. Initially, the Apple stores were opened only in the United States, but in late 2003, Apple opened its first Apple store abroad in Tokyo, Japan. Apple's first European store opened in London on Regent Street in November 2004, then in the Bullring Shopping Centre in Birmingham in April 2005, then in Canada, New York, and so on. In 2000, Apple introduced its iTools services, a set of free web-based tools that include an email account, internet greeting cards, and a service called iReview. The iTunes Music Store was launched in April 2003 with 2 million downloads in the first 16 days. The first version of the iPhone became publicly available on June 29, 2007. Financial status and the trillion-dollar company. Apple's earnings shows that the company is in good financial health as the revenue rose 17% in the second quarter to $53 billion, while the net income rose $405 to $2 per share. The company reported that MacBook sales were down and that iPad sales remained flat, and the company saw the average iPhone selling price hit $724 in the third quarter, well above the expected $694. This achievement can be credited to the flagship iPhone X, which remained Apple's most popular iDevice during the quarter, according to the CEO Tim Cook. The sales from iTunes and the App Store increased from 37% to about $10 billion, which also contributed to this procurement. Sale of AirPods, HomePods, and the Apple Watch also had a bumper quarter with growth of 37%. Overall, the net worth of Apple is worth 2 times the valuation of Facebook, 7 times of Netflix, and 42 times more than the value of Twitter. So this was Apple's journey from 1970s, which started in a garage, to 2018 as the trillion-dollar company. If you did enjoy the video, hit the like button and don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you do hit the bell icon so that you don't miss the forthcoming videos. If you have any questions regarding the video or any suggestions for the next videos, then do let us know in the comment section below. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat and Twitter at PamMotivation1. Thank you, and we hope to see you guys in the next video.